Here's my basement door. You can clearly see it's not where a basement door would normally go, but let's take a look at that situation. So this is where the basement door used to be. This is where the door frame once sat, and this is where we're going to maybe solve some problems. So, ongoing issue, probably for the past 20 years or so, water has been coming into the basement because they didn't pour this threshold all the way to the ends, to the full width of the opening. They just poured it to the width of the door, and I don't know why they would do that. But what's happened is the wood frame, which was probably pressure treated, there it is, at one time, it went all the way to the floor, and of course moisture would wick up into the wood over time and rotted it out, and now there's all sorts of stuff living in the wood. We won't talk about that. But anyway, water has been wicking up for years and rotting that away. So now there's been an opening here, and water just kind of comes in and goes around the furnace and into that pit over there. It's been going on for a long time. So what I did is I took the door frame out last night, and I poured concrete, actually mortar mix, all the way. Now, I don't know how well this is going to work. I have never worked with mortar mix or concrete before in my life, but we're going to see how it holds up. So, there's still some dirt there I got to clean up. But yeah, that's what I'm dealing with right now. So I went out and I bought some pressure-treated 2x8 lumber. I'm going to build a rough frame with that. And then I'm going to build a new door frame with that door frame kit. That's going to seal this door up once and for all. I'm going to reuse the original door. It's a good door. There's no damage to it, really. I might have to take about an inch off the bottom with my saw, which is no problem. I'll just shorten it a little bit. And we're going to reuse this door. This door is in great shape. And what I'm going to do for the window is I'm going to put a piece of plexiglass on the inside to kind of act as a double pane. And I'm going to clean it, repaint it, do whatever I have to do to bring it back to life. That's what I'm doing right now. I like this door. I don't want to replace it. You know, it's not an insulated door, but that's okay. It's just a basement. But it's a nice looking door, and I just don't want to lose it. I did price out a custom door pre-hung, and it was a little bit of money. Really not as much as I expected, but it was a bit pricey because it's an oddball opening, and the problem isn't the width, it's the height. It's like 70 inches high, and standard doors sold today are 80 inches. So that is a problem. It's a big problem. So I can't get a door made to fit. No one will sell me one. I mean, I could go to a millwork company, but it would cost me thousands of dollars. And if I cut down a pre-made door, it wouldn't really necessarily work because they're not made to be cut down that small. So it's a bit of an issue. Anyway, I gotta get back to work. I gotta start rebuilding this whole frame. But you can see, yeah, there's all kinds of larvae. There was a chipmunk living right here in this block. Right where that block is now. That was a chipmunk den. And that's kind of why I started working on this now rather than later. So, gotta get on with it. Alright, so at this point I started building the door frame out. I've got these 2x8 pressure treated. They are attached to the opening with Tapcon screws, and I've got foam between the wood and the concrete as required. I'm not sure if it's required in this instance, but I'm doing it anyway. That helps prevent moisture from migrating from the concrete directly to the wood. I then started building it in a little bit with some 1x6 pressure treated. You notice I've got some flashing on the door sill. And there's a bunch of asphalt adhesive underneath it. Once the sill's installed, I will squeeze it down and it should seal it up pretty good. Onward and upward. Okay, so when making it, working with these do-it-yourself door jamb kits, there's a few things you need to know. Number one, never ever trim the jam from, the jam kit from the bottom, because they're made out of PVC up to here, and that's to prevent water from wicking up if moisture were to get on the door sill. And what that does is it prevents the door jamb from rotting out. What you have to do is trim it from the top, and then you have to dado cut the upper part of the door jamb. So what you're actually doing is you're cutting out about the thickness of the upper part of the door jamb. I don't have a dado blade, so what I used was my circular saw, and I just cut all the way down to the depth that I needed it to be. Just set my blade depth to where it needed to be, to where it matched up with this surface here, and then I ran my saw across it, and then I used a chisel and chiseled it out, and I need to do the other side. Okay, so here's where we're at now. I've got the door sill anchored, and I've got the I actually built the, I don't know if I got this on the film yet, but I've built the frame. It's all assembled. It's pretty much square and plumb. It's not perfect, and that's because these walls aren't perfect. So I'm just trying to work with what the house has for levelness and plumbness and all that happy shit. And hopefully the door is straight, the frame is straight enough to allow the door to close properly. So now we've begun the process of modifying the door. Now this works out perfectly, because you'll notice the very bottom of the door is just beginning to rot. So we're going to cut that right off, and we're going to start anew. So I'm going to, at some point, clean, paint, whatever I got to do to this door, make it look pretty again. But this door is in good shape overall. It's structurally sound. It's not rotten. And I really like the way the door looks. Now here's the bottom piece that we took off, and you can see right here it's just beginning to go. So having the door downsized a couple inches is really a godsend, because it allows me to save the door. But as you can clearly see, it actually fits in the frame. So I just need to be really careful on my placement of hinges. I have to get the hinges marked off. I'm going to shim the door up a little bit so I can mark off where the hinges are going to go. I've got new hinges, so I'm going to probably put those on first, and then we'll get I'm going to finish blocking in the door frame. We'll get the trim outside done. But let me get the door hung first. Okay, well, it looks like it works pretty good, in fact. Better than I expected, honestly. There are a few snags, though. Number one, because this door is so thin, it wasn't really built this frame wasn't really built for a door like this. So it's kind of set back into the frame more than, the manufacturer intended. The second thing is, yes, it's a little out of plumb, just a little bit, and that's why I made sure that things were going to fit either way. It gives me some room to play with. But the hinges went on just fine. I have to sand the door at the bottom. So I'm going to sand the door with my DeWalt sander. But overall, it seals up pretty nice. As good as it's going to anyway. Yeah, this seal does kiss the door. Not as much as I'd like it to, but again, I couldn't put the hinges back any farther. It doesn't give me that ability. So, there's that. Now, one thing that could be done is I could actually bring the hinges. Yeah, I could do that. But I'm going to leave it the way it is. We'll see how it goes this winter. I mean, look, the first winter I had this house, This wasn't sealed at all. I mean, you could feel breezes because there were no door seals of any kind. Nothing. Nothing. There was nothing here for sealage. So this will be better than anything that I've had so far. I'm going to build this out with a trim. And I got to go to the store and I've got to get 8-inch trim for the exterior. The 6-inch trim that I bought isn't going to cut it. So I'm going to return that and I'll get some 8-inch. But we have a door here, and that's better than we had just a few hours ago. Got this block of wood here. This is mainly for the deadbolt and the latch. That's pretty much what that's there for. I'll probably put another one here since I have some scrap lumber, and I'm going to seal this with foam. It's going to be real nice when I'm done. It'll be real nice. So I actually use double foam on the bottom of the door sill. So that's doubled up. So yeah, that'll be nice. That shouldn't leak. That shouldn't leak. I mean, it may. It very well might. But what I'm going to do also, I got another ace up my sleeve. So right here, we're going to have water pouring in no matter what I do with caulking and sealant. But when I put my trim boards on, I'm going to cut a piece of aluminum that will be like a secondary runoff. It's going to go behind the trim, and it's going to force it. It's not going to allow water to just pour in. See, if I'm trying to figure out what I just did here. Little bastard. It'll all work out in the end. So, we're basically done at this point. I have a few adjustments to make, a few changes to make, but otherwise we're pretty much finished. This does need another coat of paint on the inside. The door needs to be painted. I'm going to fill in all the holes, and we're going to take the door back. The door's got to come back off the hinges, and I'm actually going to take a little bit more off the bottom. I want to fit it with a different type of sweep. I'll explain why in a bit. But you can see water is coming in. So this is actually, I sprayed the door with a garden hose. And I actually see, there's my leak right there. Yep, I see daylight. I don't see daylight over here though, but we do have a small leak here as well. But a lot of this water is actually coming in through the panel seams. That's an easy fix. Once I get the paint off the door, on the front side of the door, outside of the door, I'll be able to seal up any gaps and cracks in the door, and that'll be fixed. So I'm not too worried about that, but I don't like that. I don't want to see daylight. But that's the only area where I see any light leaks anywhere in the door. None of the side or the exterior seals are leaking. Those are good. But what happens is water, when it's sprayed directly onto the threshold, it does build up and it spills over. So this is going to be it's a nightmare of a project. I mean, I did all this work and yet I still have a water leak. Now, the type of water dispersion that I sprayed on the door was really to simulate a heavy rainstorm. And I think for the most part it'll be okay. But there are still changes to be made. Again, the door has to now come back off. The hinges, I've got to do that anyway to sand and paint it, scrape and paint it. And I'm going to make some adjustments to the bottom of it. But otherwise, let's take a look at the outside. It does stick. So it wasn't sticking earlier today, but it is now because I got the door wet. And what happens when you get wood completely soaked? It begins to swell. So that just further emphasizes that I need to make some adjustments to the bottom of the door. So on the exterior, we've got 1x8 composite. This is a PVC lumber product. It's made entirely of plastic, not the most environmentally friendly stuff, but it has the added benefit of being completely impervious to rot, mold, mildew, insects, all the things that destroyed the old door frame. And this seals out the water, the wind, the elements from getting into the framing members. I sealed all the gaps with foam. All around, every gap is sealed with foam. And it's actually, I think, a pretty well-made door frame at this point. I'm not too crazy about this threshold. It's almost level, which is stupid because it's not shedding water like it's supposed to. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. But I am going to add some more caulking, I think, all around. I'm going to probably caulk in here, seal that up nice. But it's not really shedding water like I was hoping. It's allowing water to pool, and we don't want that. We don't want water pooling. We want it to go away. But water is definitely getting in this door. And this right here, this is a leak. And it's a leaker. So all of these gaps have to be cleaned out, sealed up, and the door gets repainted. I did add, again, like I said, I added that sweep. And yeah, this door is sticking now. Now that it's wet, it's sticking. So we're going to do something a little bit different. Like I said, I'm going to take the door off and I'm going to fit it with a clip-on. Either a slide-on or a screw-on. What it is, it's basically a U-shaped piece of plastic with rubber ribs, like 3 or 4 ribs that scrape up against the sill. The problem that I'm going to have here, and this is, once again, you know, a losing battle here. This door is only 1 1/4 inch thick. So 1 1/4 inch is a little bit too thin for most of those products. I think 1 1/2 or so is about standard these days. This is not, you know, this is a 1 1/4 inch thick door. So those slide-on type devices, they aren't going to fit. So you know, at this point, I'm starting to consider the idea of having a fiberglass door custom cut to fit the opening. Get a 32-inch fiberglass door and go from there. You know, one of the benefits of a fiberglass door is that they are dimensionally stable. They don't swell when it gets moist and humid out. They don't shrink when it gets dry out. They pretty much stay exactly the shape and size that you bought them as. Wooden doors, not so much. That's why you've got to make sure you have plenty of gap all around. Now, I don't know what happened here. Actually, I'm trying to figure that out because I was pretty careful with my measurements. But it ended up, I cut the dado a little too high up there, I think, and that's what happened. So anyway, so I went with a 1/4 round molding on the top here to kind of give it some class. You know, it's got to be classy. I've sealed and caulked every gap, seam, opening I could find, and once this all dries, I'm going to seal up the threshold. I think that might help. That might help the situation a little bit. But this is the interior of the door. I cleaned up nice. I'm going to clean it up a little bit more, and we're just going to put some exterior paint on it. The other side, I'm going to have to strip down to bare wood. It's just too far weathered to play with. But yeah, I think at this point, you know, going with a new door might be beneficial, but I really do want to save this door. At this point, I just don't see any other option. But As for buying a door off the shelf, here's the problem. I mean, you could buy a pre-hung door that is, 32 inches wide, all the way up to, 36? And a 36-inch door would fit here, but here's the big problem. And I went to the millwork desk at my local Home Depot and Lowe's, and at the millwork desk, they can make anything. They can have anything custom made, as long as it's within the parameters of what the manufacturer will allow. But you see that this door is just 75 and a quarter high. 75 and a quarter. Standard is 80. Now that's going to look like, see how high that, 80 inches is your standard door. And they can go as low as I think 72 inches on a pre-hung door. They will do a 72-inch door. But again, not so sure that's really where I want to go with it.